What is going on, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Ride. I'm your host, Jeff Hartman, on this Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning podcast brought to you by the Steel Curtain Network, which is a part of the Fans First Sports Network. Thank you all for tuning in, and if you're, again, said this last week on Monday, if you're like, all right, ready for Jeff's winners and losers, you're not going to find it. Not here. You got to go back to yesterday's podcast. It's a special Sunday episode. I always do the winners and losers the day after the game. In this case, coming up, the Steelers play on Thursday night against Carolina to finish up the preseason. That means you get the winners and losers on Friday. So keep all that in mind. Go back and check out the winners and losers, a shorter podcast when I'm just talking about that. But really, we're going to be talking a lot about not just the Steelers' Week 2 loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 17-14 at Acrisure Stadium. I wanted to take a look at the preseason in general. I wanted to take a look at all of it. And there's a part of me that's like, you got to take the good with the bad. And that kind of reminds me of the song for The Facts of Life. You take the good, you take the bad. Oh, that's the facts of life. The facts of life. Everyone, and I'm probably dating myself, but if you remember that show that was on television, you probably know the theme song. And so after 2 preseason games, can we take a ton from the preseason? No, I don't think we can. Can we take something from the preseason? Yes, I think that we can. And so you have these good things that have been happening, and you have these bad things that have been happening. Some things, whether you're talking about things like penalties, those can be sporadic, and those can all be based on who's in the game. If you're talking about a fourth quarter slew of penalties, it's most likely because you have fourth teamers in there, third and fourth team, string guys that are just trying to do whatever they can. They're getting tired. They're not as good. They're not as polished. Therefore, you have a lot of penalties. I'm going to leave some of that stuff to the side. So I want to talk about the good, and I want to talk about the bad surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers as we have 2 full preseason games to talk about. And we'll most likely be doing this again after the 3rd preseason game, getting you ready for week 1 of the regular season. So let's talk about the good. The first 2 games, I will say this. I've been very pleased with the Steelers' offensive tackle situation. Whether you're talking about Troy Fautanu on the right side or whether you're talking about Broderick Jones on the left side. Yes, Broderick Jones, even Broderick Jones. I've been very pleased with the offensive tackle play. Now, we haven't seen a lot of runs, or successful runs, we should say, but we have seen some really good pass protection. When there's been a sack or pressure on a quarterback, it has not typically occurred from the edge. That's a good thing. We should be happy. There are some people out there that just, it feels like, especially Broderick Jones, not so much Fautanu. They want to they get angry if you say something good about this guy. I'm not sure why. We should want him to succeed. The Steelers invested a lot in him, traded up to get him in that draft. So for me, I've been very, very happy with the offensive tackles. That is definitely one of the good aspects that has come from the Steelers preseason thus far. I'm going to go with also another facet of the preseason that I think has been good. The wide receiver depth. So you talk about Roman Wilson. Is Roman Wilson a WR2, a wide receiver 2? I'm not so sure, at least not yet. But he is showing he can be a contributor as a pass catcher. The guy has averaged well over 20 yards a catch in 2 preseason games. You know, one could be a blip on the radar. 2 shows a trend. I like Roman Wilson. I also like Scotty Miller. And again, we haven't seen DK Metcalf on the offensive side of the ball, or on the defensive side. I don't know why I said offensive side. We haven't seen DK Metcalf yet this preseason. We haven't seen Calvin Austin III, who hasn't even practiced since the Friday Night Lights practice at training camp. I actually like what we're seeing from this wide receiver depth. You throw in Rock Taylor, Brandon Johnson's a big body. They have some practice squad guys there too that they might be able to elevate if they need to. I like the wide receiver depth. I think that's a good part of the Steelers' overall preseason, good and the bad. Now let's go to the next thing that I think is good. I think the quarterback room is good. I'm not going to lie. No, we haven't seen Aaron Rodgers, but we've seen Mason Rudolph, and I know that interception he threw in the first offensive series against the Buccaneers was not good. But ultimately, you look at Skylar Thompson. I like Skylar Thompson. And a buddy of mine is a Dolphins fan, and he said, if you ever see Skylar Thompson, you better be worried. He should know. They had him as a starter at one point. And I told him, I said, listen, if Skylar Thompson is starting for the Steelers at any juncture this year, things have gone south real fast, and I'm not going to have high expectations anyways. But if Skylar Thompson were to be thrust into a game, do I think he could move the ball and make plays? I do. What really sucks, and this is, I could have put this in the bad category, but I'm not going to, it really sucks that we haven't gotten to see Will Howard. Because Will Howard, I know 6th-round draft pick, not a lot of high expectations. I get all that. But Will Howard, man, come on. I wanted to see what he could do, and unfortunately, we probably won't be able to. We'll find out more from Mike Tomlin, who's probably going to meet with the media either today, Monday, or Tuesday. Another thing that I like so far is Arthur Smith's offense is kind of coming to fruition. Whether the players are executing the plays or not is a different story altogether. He is running his zone schemes and offense. He is definitely getting the wide zone going. He loves those style of runs. He's also a guy that likes to push the ball downfield. If you think back to some of the Randy Fichtner, Matt Canada wide receiver screens, it's not that they won't run a wide receiver screen. That's not what Arthur Smith wants to do. Arthur Smith wants to drive the football down the field, especially down the middle if he has a quarterback that's willing to make that throw, and it's going to open up the entire field. So throws to like let's just call it a spade. Roman Wilson has been that guy. Big chunk plays down the middle. Scotty Miller's another one. If you connect on a couple of those, it's going to open up things on the outside for a guy like DK Metcalf. Arthur Smith's offense is starting to round into shape. That doesn't mean that the running game is good. We'll talk about that here in a second. The next, let's continue with that sentiment and talk about the passing attack. The Steelers have passed the ball very well in the preseason. You think about week 1 where Mason Rudolph took them down and had 2 touchdown drives. Skylar Thompson has moved the ball well through the air, and I understand, take it with a grain of salt, but still, the passing attack and the receivers are getting open. They're finding one another. The only real mistake that I can think of is in week 1, a dropped screen pass by Caleb Johnson. In week 2, Mason Rudolph threw a fastball to Max Hurlman in the red zone, and it just ricochets off his hands, and he doesn't come down with it. Other than that, they've been really good through the air. And I'm not about to say that the Steelers should go into week 1 against the New York Jets and say, we're just going to chuck it. Let's just chuck it. I'm not going to say that. And the reason why I'm not going to say that is that, not that Aaron Rodgers couldn't handle it, I just don't think that's the best course of action with a guy of his age. And, we talk about his arm and the potential fatigue, things like that. So that's where I'm going to go in that regard. Last thing in terms of good, I haven't talked a lot about the defense. A lot of the defense has not even played in terms of starters. But I'm going to say the run defense has been a bright spot. Week 1, they look good. Yes, they gave up a couple runs in the second half. This past weekend, Saturday night, Bucky Irving, who is their starting running back, Tampa Bay, mind you, had nowhere to go. I mean, they held them to 41 total yards, something along those lines. The Steelers' run defense, again, grain of salt, has looked really, really good through 2 preseason games. Now, you got to take the bad with the good, though. Well, there is a lot of bad. Let's talk about that. First thing that I noticed that has not been good has been on the other side of the docket in terms of bad has been the interior offensive line. Poor snaps continue between quarterback and center, and some of those have been Zach Frazier. Zach Frazier, Vita Vea, he's a big man for Tampa Bay. And I think he taught that second-year center a couple things on Saturday night. And I hope he learned some of those lessons from Vita Vea. But still, the interior offensive line, Mason McCormick, they haven't had Isaac Seumalo. We're hoping that we'll see a jump in production there, at least in communication and just basic doing what you're supposed to do. Interior offensive line has not been good or where I would want to see it so far. And that is also why, by proxy, another part of the Steelers preseason that has not been good has been the run offense. Caleb Johnson, we haven't seen Jalen Warren, but we got Kenny Gainwell for extended looks the other night. The only running back that has actually done some damage, Caleb Johnson did on Saturday night against Tampa Bay. I don't want to say he didn't, but it's been Lou Nichols. Lou Nichols has been the one that's done the most damage on the ground. I did think that Caleb Johnson started to kind of get some confidence, and that's why I even said this during the game. I tweeted out that I was happy that they kept him in the second half, Caleb Johnson, that is, based on the fact that you wanted to get him repetitions, you wanted to get him experience. I was okay with that. But still, the run offense, there is nothing opening up on the interior. Nothing. They're not getting any push. That's why you're seeing Caleb Johnson having to bounce runs out all the time. And against starters, you're not able to do that. Corner safeties are going to crash down. They're going to make that tackle. You go against third and fourth string players, that's where you can actually get on the outside and make a play. This isn't college. This is not Iowa. You got to make those plays, and a lot of it has to do with the interior offensive line. Hopefully they can get that fixed. But you can kind of, if you read the tea leaves or so, as some people will say, This offensive line is talking and like, man, we got to make it work. They know that there are issues there. We'll see if they can get it rectified. Injuries are another aspect of the preseason, which continues to haunt the team. Not as bad as some other teams, but Nick Herbig going down with a hamstring injury. We'll talk about that in the second half. Christian Kuntz, he leaves the game with a chest injury. Now, Mike Tomlin said that they got some good news on that front, which is great, but we don't know how long he's going to be out, if for any extended period of time. We'll see. But injuries are never a good thing. They're always bad. Next, let's go to the unknown. To the unknown. Now, in the second half of the podcast, we're going to talk a lot about the Steelers' basic plan for the preseason and how it's okay to question things. And so right now, you talk about offensive and defensive starters. There are so many that we have not even seen yet. Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Isaac Seumalo, Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith. A lot of players. Jalen Warren's another one. Defensively, gosh, it's everyone. Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Patrick Queen hasn't played yet. Joey Porter Jr., Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, Deshaun Elliott, all of them. They haven't played. And so it's really tough to sit here, and I know Brian Davis really struggled with this on the postgame show on Saturday when he said, I don't even know what I can take from this because we just aren't seeing these players that are actually going to be playing. He's not wrong. But at the same time, you just got to try and figure things out for those players that are on the field. But really, ultimately, the unknown is a bad thing based on the fact that, well, it's the unknown. It could work out just fine. We don't know that just yet. I will say that overall, another aspect that's not good is the offensive line depth. You know, Calvin Anderson is still hurt. He was the swing tackle. They thought Dylan Cook might be that guy. I don't think he's that guy. Calvin Anderson is, again, still hurt, as I mentioned. The guard depth, not that great. It's odd. They don't have a lot of good depth on the offensive line. And when you have Spencer Anderson playing for Isaac Seumalo, he is primarily that depth piece outside of Ryan McCollum at center that's going to be moving around. You don't get to see a lot of that in the preseason, but the offensive line depth, for some of the depth that is on the good side of things, this is not one of them. It is not good. And I will say, too, I think that the last thing I'll say that's not good is I think the Steelers, and people might say, well, these guys don't read articles and they don't listen to podcasts or to listen to what the radio heads are saying. Yes, they do. Especially these young players, they do. Because that's the age that they grew up in. They're on their phones. They're checking social media. They're checking to see what people are saying about them and what they're saying about the team. And don't think for a second after week one going down to Jacksonville, the Steelers playing against the Jags' first team, and they kind of run all over them, that they weren't thinking, oh, man, I think we're going to be pretty good. Well, first and foremost, I think Jacksonville's going to be awful this year. Secondly, though, I think they started to drink their Kool-Aid a little bit. They started to drink that Kool-Aid. And I think you saw Tampa Bay came in, and at least with the first team that they put out there, Teddy Bridgewater, a quarterback, not Baker Mayfield, they moved the ball. Now, they benefited from things like roughing the passer, or roughing the kicker call. But nonetheless, I think this was a reality check for the Steelers, and I'm okay with that. And when I say it out loud, maybe I should have put this on the good side. Maybe I should have put the fact that the Steelers needed to kind of come back down to earth a little bit is on the good side. And I said this about the joint practice on Friday, that all reports were the defense struggled a little bit. And you had players saying we came out flat. That was Brandon Echols, the cornerback, that said we came out flatter than we usually do. Hey, defense, you all could be great. You all have, well, you know what the dreaded P word is, right? You are brimming with potential. Doesn't mean you're going to live up to it. So I think this was a reality check. And so far, the preseason for a lot of these groups has been a reality check. The offensive line, you can hear it when they speak. Troy Fautanu talking to the scrum of media after the game on Saturday, you could feel it, that he knows the pressure is on and it's ramping up. They have to get this stuff figured out, and they're running out of time. So we'll see. But there you have it. You got to take the good with the bad in terms of the Steelers preseason so far after 2 games. When we come back after this break, I'm going to be talking all about why I think it's okay for Steeler fans to question the Steelers' organizational decision on how to handle starters this preseason. We'll be right back after this break.